while you're growing up in a financially, struggling family, typically when people are put into stressful situations, that's where an entrepreneurial spirit gets born. Uninformed optimism is when somebody watches a YouTube video and they're like, oh my God, I can get into real estate. And then once they realize that this is much more difficult than that video on YouTube by that guru made it out to seem, my job as a good coach is to get them through that stage as fast as possible. I go to buy a home in 2012 and I get told by who you would imagine being the authorities in real estate. They all said, unfortunately, Jeremy, you're not going to be able to buy a home because you've got the credit, you've got perfect credit, you've got cash literally under my mattress, but you don't have the work history. Whenever I talk to somebody about partnering with me on a deal, I say it's the 3 T's, okay? Time, treasury, or talent. Time, treasury, or talent. By working with me, I provide the talent. Now you have to provide either the time or the treasury. And the treasury meaning, do you have money to provide in the deal?
Welcome back to the Hustle and Grind podcast, the show where we dig into why real entrepreneurs trade comfort for conviction. This isn't about vanity metrics or overnight success. It's about the stories behind building a reputation that actually matters. I'm your host, Andrew, keynote architect, platform builder, and fellow founder in the trenches. Today, I'm sitting down with Jeremy Davis, the tactical real estate investor and creative finance expert who's helped over 1,000 new investors close their first deals. As the founder of the Investor Semester, Jeremy built one of the largest real estate education communities in the country, playing a part in an estimated $2.5 billion in student deal volume. His content is bold, tactical, and designed for action takers. He cuts through the noise to show investors how to win deals and scale the right way. Awesome. Jeremy, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really, really appreciate it. I love your story, and it's going to be so much fun getting into it and what you do. I think it's really cool. So thank you again for being on here. Really appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Pleasure to be here.
Cool. So I know in the bio, we hear about who you are, like at the intro, but I kind of want to hear in your words what you do. It's always a little different than a bio, right? Yeah.
In my words, what do I do? Wow, it's what do I do? What do I not do? I feel like sometimes I do everything in the business, and sometimes I'm able to step away. But no, big umbrella picture. I do a lot of real estate, specifically structured around creative finance, and I do renovation, fix and flips. I do wholesale. And I also have a plethora of students that I work with in my own separate community that I help teach them the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people have trouble wrapping their head around subject to, because we hear people do it. We hear the buzzwords around it. And I think there's a lot of people that think they know what's going on. Explain what subject to is. Like, how does it work in a nutshell?
Yeah, well, subject to is just one tool on the tool belt in the umbrella of creative finance. But subject to is basically buying a property, but you're keeping the original mortgage in place. So you're able to utilize that seller's debt, and you basically have no Well, I don't want to say you have no responsibility, but you have no responsibility of going to a bank. You don't have to give your social security number, nothing like that. Basically, the mortgage stays in place and you buy the property subject to that mortgage existing. And so you take title, you get to, make the payments to the mortgage every single month. And then depending on what you do with the property, whether it be rented, Airbnb, whatever it is, then you make the profit on the back end and you own the property. So you get the appreciation, you get the principal pay down, you get all the tax benefits. And it's just like buying a property, but without having to use a bank.
Yeah. And I think that really ties in. And one of the things I want to hear from you is, how'd you get into this? Like, what was the series of events that caused you to do this? It's one of my favorite questions.
All right. So we're going back in time. Travel with me. All right. So we're going back like 20 years now at this point. So let's go into a little more. Actually, we're going back further. We're going back 35 years. All right. So here we go. So I came from a family that was really stricken by poverty. My dad, as much as he tried, was never able to financially get back on his feet. And so as a child, we had our properties foreclosed on us. We were evicted from our rentals. And it was at the time as a kid, you don't really know. You're just caring about your toys. You're caring about going outside and playing with friends. But you don't really pay attention to the stress that it puts on the family. And Everything actually before I believe the age of 15 years old that I ever owned, any pictures, any home videos is all gone because we got evicted from the property and everything got thrown away and dumped. So basically Jeremy Davis doesn't really exist before the age of 15 years old. So while you're growing up in a financially, struggling family, typically when people are put into stressful situations, that's where an entrepreneurial spirit gets born. And so when I was a teenager, I sold a little bit of green stuff. Okay. And that was before it was medicinal. That was before it was looked at as a legal thing. So I tried to be able to afford food, and at the time my family was getting food donated to us by charities and stuff like that. And so for me, it was a way of just being able to survive on my own at the age of 15 or 16. I ended up actually getting arrested. I got arrested for when I was 16 years old. I got arrested for not even dealing, not even selling, but giving away 3 seeds to some kids at lunchtime at the high school. And somebody ratted me out and I got arrested for distribution of marijuana seeds. And so I actually got arrested. I got expelled from high school and my parents actually fought it. They were very activist type of people. And so they fought it. So it ended up going from an expulsion down to a 2-month suspension. But even after 2 months, I couldn't get back on my feet. I was so behind on my grades that I couldn't catch up. So I just decided to go, you know what? I don't need high school. I've always been very anti-establishment in the first place. I thought that it was, a lot of teachers that really didn't know much more than the subject they were teaching out of a book. And I didn't think that, while they might have wisdom, they didn't have the intelligence. And granted, now there were some teachers out there that were amazing, but again, the vast majority of them are there because they like to live a mundane life, and that's really it. So anyway, I feel like I just probably insulted some teachers out there. No, if you're a teacher, you're not living a mundane life, but it's from an entrepreneurial, aspect. I want to strive to be better. And now, granted, I'm a coach now, so I'm teaching, so it's the same thing. But taking that back.
Sorry to cut you off there, because what it is I just think there's a different concept out there. And I think a lot of the people that may be offended by something like that don't truly understand what that means. So, because there's something total, as entrepreneurs, we think of things very differently than other people do. And so when I'll give you a redo. We'll give you a do-over. I think explain what that thought process was when you're saying, oh, it's just very middle class, or, oh, it's just, explain what that is.
It's very middle of the road. It's not taking any risks. It's just, hey, you have a consistent paycheck. You show up every single day. All you have to do is grade some homework. But the real thing is that you're not really challenged every single day. You're not able to, you're a teacher. What's your promotion? Is it going from 3rd grade to 4th grade? You're like, ooh, I just made more money because I went up 1 grade level. No, it doesn't work that way. So how do you excel to be a better person? Other than maybe getting a nationally recognized teacher award or something like that given to you by the principal, like a ribbon on your shirt. But ultimately speaking, again, for most businesses, I've always been the person that will strive to be better and better every day. Everything that I do, everything that I put my mind to, I'm going to get better at it every single day. And so that's all I meant by that, is that living a mundane life is you're not really looking to excel and grow into something better. Being a teacher is never going to be setting your family up for financial wealth. There's not going to be generational retirement, nothing like that. It's just you're doing a job and that's it. And you might like seeing the children's faces smile and watch them learn. And that is how I feel about my students. But at the same time, I can't be mundane. I can't live that type of life.
And I think I wanted to make sure that we made that differentiation, because that's how, as entrepreneurs, we think. We are constantly pushing forward. We're constantly moving ourselves forward. We're constantly learning how to make generational wealth. We're constantly learning how to better ourselves. And while we need workers, and if somebody wants to go that path, absolutely cool. You do you. Great. We just happen to reject that reality. We have our own. And I want to make sure we made that clear to people, because they may not understand that this is just the way we think as entrepreneurs. How am I going to be able to build this even bigger? How am I going to go outside the box? We're terrible students and we're terrible employees. Because it wasn't built for us, right?
Yep, exactly right. So, all right. So going back to it. So I ended up, instead of going back to high school, or instead of dropping out, I made a choice that I was going to study my ass off, and I was going to take what's called the Chesnutt exam. It's basically the California high school proficiency examination, which proves to the state that I have learned everything that high school has to offer. And so I ended up, instead of trying to like fight to get back into school and get my grades up, I just said, screw this. I'm like, I'm better than this. I know I'm smarter than the vast majority of people out there. I'm going to try this. And so study. It was one of the most difficult tests that I've ever done, minus becoming a sommelier. And then, yeah, I passed. I started college early. I had a really bad breakup. I got cheated on by like my very first girlfriend. So then when I was in college, I was so like, why did she do that? I decided to go into psychology because I'm like, I need to figure out why she hurt me like she did. And so I go into psychology. I get a degree in psychology. I get a degree in sociology, and I get a degree in business. And as I was preparing to, go into the workforce, something happened crazy enough is that going back a few years again, when I was 16 years old, on the way to get my driver's license, on the way to the DMV, I come upon a minivan at a street light where the husband, the driver, was having a cardiac arrest. And because I was in Boy Scouts as a younger, kid, I knew CPR. Unfortunately, couldn't do anything for him. He passed away there, but the wife is yelling, help me, help my husband. The kids in the back seat, save my daddy. And so that kind of was the catalyst. That was the seed that was planted about maybe that I need to be more in first responder type of stuff. And I ignored it at the time. I didn't think about it because, again, I went to school and I was focused on education. And, while I'm a bad student, I also love learning. I'm constantly loving to learn. So I go to school, and then I have, at the age of 21, at the age of 20 was a double rollover accident, one decapitation and one person I stabilized. Then at the age of 21, I was at a margarita mix-off, like at a local park where all the restaurants had a margarita contest. Someone had a diabetic heart failure. I'm the one giving CPR. And so it just kept happening over and over again that I'm in these like life and death situations. So then I decided to become a medic. So I went back to school, get my license as a medic. And then instead of working full-time on the ambulances and in the rigs, I had a friend that worked in Hollywood. He worked in the movie sets, and he was a set medic. And he said, hey, why not work on movie sets? You get to make twice as much money as you would on an ambulance. You get to be around movie stars and cool explosions and stuff like that. Why not do that? And that's kind of where I stuck for about 10 years. So most of my 20s, that's what I did. And in the beginning, it was amazing. Super, super fun. Because when you start in that business, you actually start on low budget movies. And when you're working on low budget movies, you're working with a bunch of amateurs, right? People that are fresh out of film school and they don't know what they're doing. And so if it says, don't touch, this is hot, how hot is it? Right? And they touch it. And so I was super busy in the beginning, but then eventually as I grow and I get better and better, I started ending up working in the biggest movies out there. So I'm working on Marvel. I'm working on, Disney is Marvel, but, all Universal, all the big boys out there, those are the movies that I worked on, all the feature films. Mm-hmm. And so then you start working with more veterans, people that are very safe with what they do. They don't take any chances. They're not holding a board with a nail gun and their hand on the backside of it, right? So the worst that would happen is I'd have to maybe like take out a splinter or maybe give out a tampon. And it became very, very, very boring. So now fast forward, years have gone by. I've been doing this for a long time, and I had some roommates in Los Angeles and they smoked weed. I did not. Remember, again, I did this back when I was a teenager, back in high school. But after that, once I started getting my life together, I was like, you know what? Bad crowd. Don't really need it. Not really necessary. Whatever. Moving on. So they come home with 2 little baby plants. And now this is after Prop 215 passed. So now marijuana is a medical legality, and they can go to a dispensary and they can pick up little plants. And they go, what do we do with them? I go, you know what? I'm bored. Why don't I try to grow them for you guys in my closet? Like, I'm sitting on movie sets and I'm getting paid to do nothing. Why don't I just pull up my laptop and start, looking up how to do nutrients and lighting and all that fun stuff. And so I look into it and I end up growing these couple of plants. And when harvest time comes, my roommates and their friends have a party and they say, this is the best weed we've ever smoked, ever. And I go, you know what? And then, a light bulb, an entrepreneurial light bulb goes off and I go, all right, well, guys, I'm kicking you out. Uh-huh. So I kick my roommates out of the apartment, and I had a 3-bedroom apartment. And so I end up turning 2 of the bedrooms into a commercial grow. And so I started doing that. At one point, my landlord found out, and she had the sheriff come and almost got me busted. They didn't have a warrant. And so then I called my attorney. My attorney goes like, no matter what you do not call your landlord, and you should just get a U-Haul truck and get everything out of there because they're going to be showing up probably the next day with a warrant. That's what my recommendation is. And I go, you know what? I hear your recommendation, but I'm giving a call to my landlord. So I call her up and I say, hey, can we meet for coffee? So I meet her for coffee and I say, I can understand, as I can only imagine if I owned properties, what it would make me feel like if something was happening inside that property that I was not aware of, right? Or that were walls getting punched in, or, flooding or mold, whatever it may be. But hypothetically speaking, if I were to be doing anything within your building, it would be with the utmost respect, that everything would be done tip top to where when I moved out, it would be in equal to, or if not better condition than it is right now. And she says to me, hypothetically speaking, Jeremy, you can continue doing whatever you're doing. So now I got the green light, right? And by the way, how did she find out? I was so naive and dumb that I'm having like these giant silver 6-inch, 8-inch ducks like coming out of the bedroom windows and just like exhausting. It was so bad. And so, yeah, so I took more precautions after that. Okay. And so anyway, so this is now moving on. So now I'm a medicinal grower, and I actually become contracted out with a number of the dispensaries in Los Angeles. I became their name brand. And so I found I was making a lot of money doing what I was doing. And then 2010 rolls around, August 29th, and I'm riding my motorcycle through the canyons of Malibu, and I get hit head on by a Harley who, it was like his first time riding. He lost control. He crossed the double yellows, hits me head on, and sends me 150 feet off the cliff. And so I break my back, I break my shoulders, my arms, I get airlifted out, and I got messed up. I was destroyed. Okay. So that put an end to being a medic. That put an end to the commercial growing. Basically, it was just me trying to wipe my own ass. And so that also, coupled with a lot of painkiller addiction, put me down a road of, I wouldn't say I was like destructive, but I was just making dumb, stoned choices. And so I invested money into the stock market. That went horrible. But when 2012 rolls around and the market turns around, right? Remember the recession? And then so now we see that there's been a rebound. We actually see the housing market is now going up again. 2012 rolls around. I'm like, I'm ready to get into real estate. It's been something I wanted to do for a long time. It's been because my family getting evicted and getting foreclosed on. It's always been a passion of mine to own my own property and be successful. And so I go to buy a home in 2012, and I get told by who you would imagine being the authorities in real estate. Who is that? That's a real estate agent, right? Like that's who you go to. Mm-hmm. So I went to a few real estate agents, and they all said, unfortunately, Jeremy, you're not going to be able to buy a home because you've got the credit, you've got perfect credit, you've got cash literally under my mattress, but you don't have the work history because you've been out on disability. Yeah. And so no lender is going to lend to you now to buy a property with a conventional mortgage. Even if you have a down payment, they're not going to do it because you have no work history. So you need to go get a W-2. They're like, why don't you go serve tables? So that's what I did when I was like 18 years old. Okay. While I was putting myself through college. And so I went back to serving. I then became a chef. I then became a sommelier. If you don't know what that is, I was the wine guy. It was my job to persuade you to spend $25,000 on a bottle of grape juice. That's what I did. And I did that for a while, and I loved it. And I worked with a number of restaurants. I opened up restaurants. And then while I was doing that, I also started learning about creative finance. So it's bringing you back to the original question you had about, what was I doing from that point on? So I started learning about creative finance. And now, did I go all in yet? No, I didn't. Was I dabbling? Was I doing a deal or two once a year? Yes, I was. I was flipping them. I was, getting them at a slight discount, putting them on the market. So I was making anywhere from like $25,000, $50,000 extra per year, just kind of passively buying these deals. And then it wasn't until COVID hit that everything shuts down. I'm working in Beverly Hills at the time. Los Angeles was not fun during COVID. Nowhere was fun during COVID, but LA was especially
LA was particularly bad.
And so I sat there and I go, okay, now I'm out of work. I don't know when the next time the restaurant's going to open again. I'm just sitting here. I'm unhappy. And quite frankly, I was also unhappy doing what I was doing now. Like, I realized that once I made my way to the restaurant that I was in, I'm not going to name the name, but it was the pinnacle of Beverly Hills. If you think of one restaurant in Beverly Hills, it was the tip top one. It was a celebrity chef, all that kind of stuff. And I found out that it was an insanely toxic environment. And if I had made my way to the very tip top restaurant that you can be in California, and I wasn't happy there, where do I go next? Right? What do I do next? So I started like dabbling in like winemaking and like going to Napa and like playing around with those ideas, but I wasn't able to find what I wanted. But when COVID hit and everything shut down, I sat there and I go, this is it. I've been wanting to do real estate for a while now. And now this might be my chance. And so because I knew that I was not wanting to be in California any longer, I very much, if you're not seeing this video, I wear camouflage. I like guns. Right?
You're about the opposite of California.
California, right? And so I end up looking around for different markets that have more of a conservative way of living. My wife and I at the time had no desire to have children. We never did. We even said to ourselves, let's not have kids. And so we look on the map and we start, using it's funny with being a sommelier, with identifying different wines, it's a matter of a deductive process. It's not of what does this have, it's what does this not have, right? And then that's how you're able to kind of finally select what you're going for. And so I start looking at the map and I go, okay, I imagine if I want to leave California, then pretty much there's a lot of other people that are going to want to leave the West Coast as well. Whether it be, Oregon, Washington, or California, they're all going to head east. And so I look at the map and I go, what's going to get hit early on? Boise, which it did. Phoenix, which it did. Vegas, which it did. But then where do they all converge? And they all seem to converge right in Salt Lake City. And what's the backstop of Salt Lake? It's actually Denver, which is now you're more on a liberal state. So either people continue past Salt Lake and then now you're going in this direction, or they stop in Salt Lake. And believe it or not, Salt Lake was the fastest appreciating market in the nation throughout COVID. It became a very, very hot market. I made a lot of money once I moved here. And so I was doing wholesaling, I was doing flipping, anything from luxury to just the median household price. I was doing that. And then again, creative finance was something that was very strong on my tool belt. And then I went all in 2020. And so when I moved here, I burned the boats behind me. One other reason that I moved to Utah was because I knew that there was not going to be a good fine dining scene here. There was not going to be a good wine scene. So I purposely chose, I said, you know what? If I were to go to Denver, let's say, I would be surrounded by really great restaurants and I would be tempted with going and getting money there and making easy money. So I just moved to Utah, and my wife and I decided to have children. We now have an almost 3-year-old boy, and we just had a girl about a month and a half ago. And so we never would have expected this would have been the life we had. But yeah, that's kind of the nutshell, a very long story to a nutshell of like what got me into this and what got me started.
But I think it really shows that entrepreneurial spirit starts early on, and usually there's a different reason why you do it, but it's not something. I don't think it's like in your mid 40s, you say, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. It's always been something you've had in the background. You may or may not have acted on it, but it's always something that you've had where you've thought completely differently than everyone else. You said, I'm not good at school. I'm usually not good at jobs. I need to go in this direction and I need to find out something completely different. And so that's why I wanted to hear that backstory. And your story is awesome. But I wanted to hear that backstory because I think it helps people to understand, again, this isn't something you just choose at one point. This is usually a way that you think. We think differently, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think we are able to accept the mundane, like I said before.
Yeah.
We have to build. We have to build.
Oh, yeah. I had a friend of mine who I've known for years, and he's been founding companies for over 30 years at this point, and he tried to retire last year. He's in his late 40s. And it was disastrous. It did not go well. He needed something to do. He needed something to build. He ended up founding another company, and it's because he has to. We're going to be building. We're going to keep going. I think that's our retirement plan, is just building stuff, right?
Exactly. And as an entrepreneur, like, you can also separate it into either the visionary versus the integrator. Yeah. So integrators can also be entrepreneurs as well, but it's typically going to be what's considered an intrapreneur. Right. So an intrapreneur is somebody that will identify the vision or the the goals of someone else, and then they will adopt it as their own. It's kind of like the mama bird finding like a nest of abandoned eggs and then raising it as its own. And so that's where a lot of integrators come into play. Very, very few, in my opinion, integrators decide to start their own business, because if they're not able to get in front of people, they're not able to handle the sales or whatever it may be, they struggle. Now, on the SaaS side of things, like softwares as a service and all that stuff, integrators can actually very, very well, become an entrepreneur. But it's kind of like this. Like if you handed me a set of Legos, I can construct anything with those sets of Legos, but I would actually get to a point where I go, I now need to design my own type of Lego because it's hitting a wall that I need to figure out something new, right? I'm getting bored with this simple block set. Like I need to invent a new type of Lego. And that's also where the visionary mindset comes into play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Whereas with the implementers, and I think we need both, all visionaries need our implementers. It's kind of how it works. But, I think they're two different mindsets. And I think you're right that an integrator has to be some sort of an entrepreneur to begin with so they can understand entrepreneur, because they have to speak it fluently, essentially. Yep. So they can have exactly mindset on it. Cool. So now you've got something cool that you're working on too, talking about building stuff. So what are you building right now?
So what again, what am I not building? So
let's talk about investor semester.
Yeah. So, all right. Right now. So with my experience in real estate, I found myself working with a couple of other communities, and these were real estate communities where there was a lot of education and a lot of people really, really, I'm going to say, just drank the Kool-Aid, and they found themselves in a community where there was not a lot of direction. It was almost like taking water from a fire hose. You've heard that term before. It was just overwhelming. It's almost like walking into a casino and going, what do I pick? Right? Ding, 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 slot machine, blackjack, mahjong. Like what are you doing? What are you picking? And if you've never played any of these games before, mm-hmm. and I tell you that you can be successful at any of them, would you feel overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Yeah, because now you have to learn them. And when every step you're going through the casino, now imagine that not only is the blackjack table there to your left, but the dealer is actually telling you, hey, right now, I'm going to teach you how to do a blackjack, but you need to sign up for my course. Mm-hmm. Right? And now they're spending money on something that might not even fit what they're looking for, right? Maybe they do like to sit there and penny slots and just pull the handle. But there was a lot of people that were coming to me, well over 1,000 students. I helped them to get their first deal because they were lost and because there was not a lot of direction. And so once I decided that I had hit a point where I can get over my imposter syndrome, I've done more than enough deals, but I had a hard time believing that I was worthy to really start asking for money to teach people. Like I was doing deals and I was JVing with them. I was partnering with them. Like I was their partner, but I was also exhausting so many of my own resources in helping people for free. Yeah. And I realized looking back at it now, I could probably be $10 million richer than I am right now if I had just been a little bit more selfish. If I had just thought about me and my business versus helping other people in their business. But what I want to do is I wanted to be a giver. Right? It's the go-giver mentality is what you're taught. And so I wanted to give and I wanted to give and I wanted to give. And you know what? I feel like I've given more than I ever needed to. But the problem is that when I watch that, like I'm hosting a meetup, for example, every single month, I'm spending $1,000 on the venue. I'm spending $500 on the catering. I'm doing all the marketing and the advertising. And then I get on that stage and then I see the students, the people in the audience, not doing deals with me, but they're doing deals with other people in the audience that are not afraid of asking for money. They're not afraid of saying, I'm a coach, you should pay me. So it took me a while to be okay with saying, hey, I'm worthy. Not only have I taught my staff and I've taught, dozens of acquisition people how to do this business, and they eventually become my own competition. They quit, they do it themselves. But I can teach people and I'm a good teacher and I love teaching, but so what I realized was instead of making someone feel like they're walking through a casino with a bunch of dinging bells and lights and shiny objects, I wanted to create something that was more structured. And that's where I came up with the investor semester. And the investor semester is basically I look at it in two different ways. One is a very structured course, And then the other one is more of a community where you get to be there and we meet throughout the week and you get to ask questions or you get to go over all the resources that we provide to you and stuff like that. And so it's really either a matter of the goal here is if you have money for marketing, here's the key here. The way I see this is if you have money for marketing, I would rather have you spend that money on proper marketing techniques so you can generate better leads, so you can close more deals, than just giving me your money as a coach and me taking that and now setting yourself up for a higher failure point. And so for me, my goal is, hey, I would rather do a deal with you. I'd rather partner with a deal on you or partner with a deal with you, but I would rather have it cost you less on the upfront where you're not feeling any buyer's remorse. You feel like from day one that you're already getting more value than you could ever imagine. And then you get me to help you close those deals on the back end if you need it. I'm more of a fractional partner, more of a fractional acquisition closer where I'm there to help you get it over the finish line if you need my help. And so it's a win-win for everybody. I position them to be able to get the education, get the guidance, and get the true mentorship throughout a deal than versus just paying for some stupid video module series that they pay thousands of dollars and then they're completely lost by the end of it. And that's what I had so many endless conversations about. People that were like, oh, I just quit my pizza delivery job. And if I can't get a deal in the next 2 weeks, I can't pay my rent. I would never allow that person to work with me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing is that I'd tell that person, get another pizza delivery job and then save up till you got $5,000 that you can spend. And then we're going to structure how you spend that money correctly on the right systems, on the right marketing, on the right lead generation. And let's get you that deal as fast as possible, but in a realistic timeline, not a, I can't pay my rent next week.
And not a, you can do real estate with zero money. You don't need any income. And I think that's a narrative that we've heard for years. And I think that's why a lot of the big corporations like Xerox and Fortune Builders and that have been slapped by the FTC because they said, you're not following through. You're not fulfilling. You're not doing what you're saying you're doing.
Right.
And I think it's an industry that's really gotten itself tarnished because of that. And I think your approach is different where it's like, no, I'm going to do this from an honest way. If I don't think you have the money, I'm not taking your money. We're not going to work together. Go get another pizza delivery job. And I think we need more people out there that actually hear stuff, and that actually hear that sort of thing. Yeah. You're an amazing coach. I mean, you're really good at teaching too.
Thank you,
so I've seen you for years do this, but And I think it's important. I wanted people to hear what the investor semester was, because again, there's so much noise. It was a RIA that I went to, to start with, that I didn't feel like I was just being pitch slapped all the time too. And I think it's rare and we need more. And so I wanted to make sure you guys.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. And it's like, could I grow this coaching business faster just by taking everybody's money and then just focusing on advertising? I probably could, but then I wouldn't be the product that I'd be proud of. And for me, I want to try to have the highest level of success. And in real estate in general, 80% of people are going to quit. Yeah. That's the truth. When you say like, could you do real estate without your own money, without your own credit? Yeah, you technically can. Mm-hmm. Let me get that very straight. If you are just listening to this and you're like, I've been thinking about getting into real estate, you can become a real estate investor without any of your own capital, you could have zero credit score. If that's even possible, right? You can do it. Okay. But it's going to take a lot of sweat equity in the beginning stages. Right? We look at this. I divide this up. And whenever I talk to somebody about partnering with me on a deal, I say it's the 3 T's. Okay. Time, treasury, or talent. Time, treasury, or talent. By working with me, I provide the talent. Mm-hmm. Now you have to provide either the time or the treasury. Mm-hmm. And the treasury meaning, do you have money to provide in the deal? Mm-hmm. And you can provide that by either building out your own marketing campaigns and building out your own funnel, or it could be you want to do a deal with me and you're my lender and you're bringing treasury to the deal. That's how you're able to also get your fingers into a deal to learn about real estate, is by bringing capital into that. So that, you're a lender of mine. I'm going to teach you about the deal. I'm going to teach you about underwriting it. I'm going to teach you about the exit strategies, not just one, but the multiple exit strategies in case something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, the vast majority of people out there, they only have time. They don't have the talent because they're new. They don't have the treasury because they haven't sold they haven't sold a business, or they don't have a great W-2, but they're swallowing the idea that they can become a real estate investor without any of that. Yeah. And they can, but it's going to take door knocking. It's going to take cold calling. It's going to take putting in the sweat equity in generating that lead. And the vast majority of students that I have that don't have capital to be able to afford marketing, I say to them in the very beginning, you are in an uphill battle now. Mm-hmm. You either find a way to get capital to be able to afford marketing, you borrow it, you pick up an extra shift, whatever it's going to take for you to do. If you think you're just going to pick up your cell phone and you're going to start cold calling 1,000 sellers a week, good luck. Mm-hmm. You can do that for maybe about a day, 2 days, and then you're going to realize very quickly that I'm burning out. Yeah. And so then that's when they quit, and that's when they move on to the next thing because they haven't found the traction yet. And it's, the saying is the uninformed optimism is when somebody watches a YouTube video and they're like, oh my God, I can get into real estate. Mm-hmm. And then once they realize that this is much more difficult than that video on YouTube by that guru made it out to seem, now they've realized they're in the next stage, which is the informed pessimism. Holy shit, this was a lot more difficult than I really expected. My job as a good coach is to get them through that stage as fast as possible to the proof of concept. And so I try not to take people that are broke as broke can be, but for the people that are, I'm very clear with them that you need to get out of this stage as fast as possible and you've got to get your first deal. But the people that have money for marketing, dude, it's a night and day difference.
Oh yeah.
Like day one, they turn on their channels, they turn on their funnel, and then they're like, hey, Jeremy, I just spoke to someone who wants to sell today. I have, for example, I have 2 students that you and I are filming right now on a Sunday.
Yeah.
On Friday, they decided to finally turn on their funnel. So they turned on their campaigns and they're using inbound marketing. So they're paying money for marketing. And already we've got seller appointments set. It should have been today, but I'm having a podcast with you, but it's going to be set for tomorrow. Then I'm going to be talking to a seller that wants to get rid of it's like a $2 million property for about 50% of the value.
Nice.
Okay. Like things like that are what spending the right money on marketing in the right ways generates the fastest leads with the fastest cash conversion cycle to be able to reinvest back into your business. And so anyway, enough of that. That's what I teach.
And just really quickly, how much, like when you say spending money on ads and spending money on marketing, how much are we talking? Like 10,000 a month, like 2,000 a month?
Oh, whoa. Slow down there, Mr. Moneyman. Listen.
Let's seed a big number first and then go from there, right?
When marketing is expensive, listen, if you're spending a lot of money, you're spending roughly $50,000 plus. Okay. Like that's where my company was at the beginning of this year. Marketing was also a lot more expensive. Cost per leads were up there. There was a lot more competition. Competition has now kind of subsided a little bit. So that's nice. But no, overall, like instead of me just giving you a round number, Andrew, why don't I talk to you about like how I would talk to a student? Okay.
Sure, absolutely, man.
So it's as simple as this. First, we want to identify, are you going to be doing inbound or outbound marketing? Right. So outbound is going to be cold calling. It's going to be texting. And while you might be able to generate a lead for a lot less cost, right? Maybe like $30, $40, something like that. Mm-hmm. You also need a lot more leads to generate a deal. Why is that? Because cold calling, you're calling somebody random on the phone. It's not like that is the day that they decide to sell their property at half the price. Mm-hmm. Right. So they might go, yeah, I might look to sell 6 months from now or a year from now. Maybe I'll do that. And so now you're having to follow up with that lead. And so you have to follow up with your leads a lot longer, which means you have a much longer timeline until you can get something under contract. So now let's just say that for sake of numbers, we are at 100 leads equals one deal at $40 cost per lead. And what does that $40 usually entails? Like your dialer, your systems, your software, things like that. If you're hiring a virtual assistant that's going to be doing the cold calls for you, that's also calculated in there. But let's just say it's $40 cost per lead and you need 100 leads to get there. What does that cost you? It's costing you $4,000 as a cost per contract, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So now for inbound, you can actually identify like what the leads are going to cost you. If you're going to run Google ads or you're going to run direct mail, it's all right around the same amount of price. But let's say you can find your market for Google and it's $200 as a lead. So every single time someone puts in information into your website, that costs you $200. Would you rather spend $40, Andrew, or $200 on the lead?
40.
Obviously, that's where a lot of beginner mindsets start because they're afraid that if they don't know how to close that deal, they're a lot more accepting of burning that $40 lead than a $200 lead, right? It's like, you ever seen the movie Tommy Boy, where Tommy's in the office with the CEO of that business, and he grabs the little toy car and he goes, this is my lead. And he smashes it and crashes it and lights it on fire and throws it in the trash, right?
Yeah.
Newer investors feel better about spending less on their leads because they're scared of not being able to close their deal. Now, if you were to be able to be building out a process and a structure to close every deal, right? You were better at that. You understood the psychology of the conversation. You had the processes and the follow-ups and stuff like that, where you would be able to have an equal likelihood of closing either a $40 or a $200. Now you remove a lot of that fear. But now let's say that instead of it costing you or $200, it costs you $200 times 20. Now 20 is on the high end. So let's say it takes you 20 inbound leads to equal one contract. So that's $4,000, right? 200 times 20 is $4,000. 100 times 40 is $4,000. So now you've got 4,000 on one side, 4,000 on the other. And now you're trying to decide which route should you go down. Well, the inbound marketing, those are people that are looking to sell today. They might want an offer on the very first phone call, if not the second. They have a much faster timeline to be able to close their property in 21 days or less. And so now you've got an ability to put your money out there, close that deal faster, and be able to have also a much more motivated seller because they're actually looking for you versus you looking for them. Right. And so that is what I try to teach my students. And so to answer your question, Andrew, a lot of markets are about $200 per lead. And so if we also look at, if you need 20 leads, and again, that's a little bit on the higher end. That's like if you need help on your sales skills, but I'm below 10. But for the sake of round numbers, it's costing me about $2,000 cost per contract. Okay. Now, if I want to throw in one more little metric in there, not every contract closes. So some of them are going to fall out. So we see about a 75% success rate. So that means that maybe, a $4,000 contract is more like a $5,000. Actually, to be specific math, it's $5,333 equals a deal. And if you could spend $5,333 to get a deal, and that deal will bring you in $15,000 to $20,000, which they normally do, is that worth it?
Yeah.
Would you be okay spending $5,000 to make 20?
Yeah, it's a really good ROI. Yeah.
That's the formula. That's all it takes. And that's where the big boys play. It's all about inbound marketing versus if you're spending time on outbound marketing, you're limping in and you're wasting time and you're struggling. And now what happens is now you've got hundreds of leads that you have to follow up with. So now you start burning out. And now you're having so many conversations every single day with people that really are not desiring to sell yet. Yeah. And so that means if you have your team members doing that, they're burning out versus inbound. They go, hell yeah. That's a call coming in from an inbound lead. That means they want to sell. They're much more likely to pick up that phone call at 10 p.m. at night to see if they can give an offer versus if it was a call from a outbound, something stupid, they're not going to waste their time at 10 p.m. They're going to spend time with their family. So anyway, that's the whole thing. That's what I try to explain, that I try to get through the psychology of if you are going to become a real estate investor, you have to be ready to not spend, but invest money in marketing. And that's what I teach. The investor semester is not teaching you about real estate. It's teaching you about sales and marketing. And then the creative finance side of things, yes, I'll be clear. The creative finance side of things is the real estate side of things. But the creative finance, why I sprinkle that in there, that's kind of like the MSG, right? You guys know what MSG is, right? The monosodium glutamate, right? The magic
makes Chinese food taste so good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the thing that enhances flavor. Okay. And that's the thing, is that could you run this business without any MSG? Absolutely. Just give cash offers. That's it. But you're going to be leaving a lot of opportunities on the table. And so with creative finance, it gives you the ability to make not just one, but multiple offers. So now you have a much higher likelihood of closing deals where if they say no to a cash offer, now you've got 3 other different opportunities you could present to them. And one of those has a much higher likelihood of them saying yes. So now you've got a higher success rate. The rest is history. There you go.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. If you want to learn more about Jeremy, there is some information in the show notes. But man, thank you so much for being on the show today and dropping some wisdom. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. If anybody wants to join, guys, we start in our free Facebook group. Just look up The Investor Semester on Facebook. Easy as that. Just join that. Great community. A lot of great investors in there. The goal there is to be able to help everybody as much as we possibly can.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you, man.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning into the Hustle and Grind podcast, where we unpack what it really takes to build something that matters. If today's conversation hit home, do me a favor. Share it with someone who's in the trenches too. And if you're building your own brand, platform, or message and want help turning that story into serious authority, head over to theauthorityforge.com to see how we can help. Until next time, keep showing up, keep shipping, and keep chasing the work that sets you on fire. I'm Andrew, and this was the Hustle and Grind podcast.